Okay, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me today. So we have time for a conversation as long as you like. I booked an hour time for this meeting. So we started talking about HRT, and you had been prescribed some HRT earlier. And could you expand on that and let me know exactly what you were given at the time? And
Um,
say again the year, because I think sometimes this is
yes.
important.
Yeah. So 2019 to 2021, I was actually started on an oral progesterone, and I started to read and found out quickly because I have Addison's disease. And I found out that, it was messing with my liver. There was issues. So I got off of it, and I was already having some issues with it in my gut. And so I got off. I figured out that I should be taking a progesterone bioidentical cream. So I found a compounding pharmacy, and I started doing progesterone cream and also estradiol cream, and was on that for 2 years. And Um, the doctor I was with never took my blood labs, only the first time. And so, just to determine how low I was. And I had been in menopause since 2017. And so, I started having thyroid issues as well. And I just was really frustrated, asked a couple times if I could um, get off, or what could I do? Can we take my labs? And they said, well, I'm just going off of what you feel. And they never ended up letting me do blood labs. So that was a little frustrating. And finally, in September of 21, I just decided to get off of it. Wish I hadn't, but that's besides the point. And so I'm back on it. I'm on a progesterone cream. I'm doing 200 milligrams, bioidentical, and I am doing a patch of estradiol, which I am considering getting off and just doing a cream. It's just like right now, it's money is a factor, and so I'm
Mhm.
trying to be logical about it. But I also don't want to do something that's going to sabotage my well-being. And the doctor also mentioned to me that I could get hyperplasia because they didn't really think that the progesterone cream would really absorb into my body.
Okay, you brought up a number of things. Some practitioners have been saying this, and I forget where that came from. So I can't tell you exactly, but somebody did tell me who started that. Like the molecule's too big to go through your
Yes,
skin,
yes.
right? So that's one of the things. So it's good we're covering that. So progesterone, the molecule, when you look at it and look at all the steroidal hormones, hydrocortisone is the biggest one, then progesterone, and then estrogen's a little estrogen and testosterone are pretty close together, but they're all in such a close range that it's very little difference in
Okay.
the actual size. Back Progesterone does go through the skin, and estrogen goes through the skin. The patch lets the estrogen that is in the patch through your skin, but it actually is holding it back. That's the
Mm,
technology. Otherwise, the whole thing would dump
sure.
totally. So when you use an estrogen cream as well as progesterone cream, the dose goes in right away. And you can see this on a dose response curve. If you happen to take serum levels, and people have done this, like how fast it absorbs and where's the high point, and where does it start drifting off. And so progesterone topically, you can very easily capture that in the serum. For some, they're not testing early enough. So to really get a gauge on your absorption for progesterone cream, if you really want to know, You'd have to probably take the blood within an hour or two after you
Oh,
put the
wow.
cream on. So this is in contrast to prometrium. Prometrium was approved on for the indication of preventing hyperplasia in the endometrium. And they only have 100 and 200 milligram doses. I would submit that there are women that need a lot more, even of the prometrium, to make sure there's no hyperplasia. But now it's like it's written in stone. So the Endocrine
Mhm.
Society, the Menopause Society, the American Academy of Obstetrics and Gynecology, they have their conventions that you need 200 milligrams of progesterone orally in the oil capsule and to protect your uterus. And you can measure this in the serum in the luteal phase when you use a capsule. And they're testing, say, 4, 6, 8 hours after your last capsule, you see a rise in the luteal phase that you entirely miss when you're using the creams. So one of the big problems with the creams, which are readily available, compounded and
Mhm.
over the counter, are some very nice creams. We don't have an FDA approved product.
Right.
So those organizations really stick to FDA approved products and really have had white papers disparaging compounding uh, and calling
Mhm.
into question effectiveness. Now, having said that, I'd like to say a couple things about creams. There are some problems with absorption with a cream, and it can be if you're low thyroid and your skin is actually cool and it's dry. You need some skin oils to help dissolve the progesterone that's suspended in the cream, and so it can get in. And if you're kind of cool, your skin blood circulation is not that good, and so that's what has to happen. It has to get through your skin, has to get into your circulation. I submit there's some more problems, like if you have too much adrenaline, which
Mhm.
highly stressed, your capillaries are constricted.
Okay.
So again, the blood flow to your skin is impaired. And then as you get older, older skin does not absorb as well as younger skin.
Mm.
And just when we need it
Right.
the most, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said. You had Addison's. Do you want to just give me some background on that, when you were diagnosed and what you had?
Yeah. So, uh, let's see, I was diagnosed in 19, let's see, 1997. I was at I went to National Jewish. It had taken, and then now that I know and I've read up on it from Dr. Wilson, who was an adrenal doctor out of Arizona, kind of functional medicine.
Mhm.
Um, uh, I wish I would have changed my diet, but was never encouraged to. Um, that would have been significant, and I hadn't at the time. Um, and I'm taking like 17 and a half milligrams of hydrocortisone, the least intrusive, because it concerns me about bone density and bones. Um, and and then so it took them like 5 years to figure it out. And I was pretty sick at that point, but
Very
I'm doing,
fatigued, I would imagine.
yeah.
Yes.
Um, so I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing okay now. Come to find out, I was just this year, I found out that I was born with the celiac gene.
Oh,
And so I
great.
have celiac.
Uh-huh.
So I have Addison's, I have thyroid Hashimoto's, and I have celiac. And I just from reading what I've read, I would venture to say that I have the other two autoimmune because of my gut, because of the celiac.
Okay, this is all very good because Addison's is like the extreme where your adrenals cannot produce hydrocortisone, or if you say cortisol, it's one and
Right.
the same. So
Yes.
are you using your 17.5 milligrams? Are you spacing that out throughout the
Yeah.
day? Okay.
Yep. I take it in the morning, and then, as a matter of fact, I need to take it now at 2, so I'm a little bit behind, but that's no big deal. But yeah, um, it's been interesting, and they all are in the same loop together. The thyroid and the adrenals connect to
Yes.
each other, and so I wasn't surprised when I got Hashimoto's, and 2 years ago I went on a thyroid diet, which helped me with my adrenals because I used to be on 25 milligrams and I was able to drop it to 17 and a half. And, um, and getting gluten out of my diet and getting dairy out of my diet. And then ironically found out that I had still having some issues. My thyroid was getting funky again. I keep my antibodies low. They're never above like 50, but they're still there. One of them
Uh-huh.
is 0, and then the other one is usually at like 46, 50, 47. It's kind of weird.
Right, just a slight elevation, but
Yeah, I'm
it's
not on
there.
medication. I was on medication, and my T3 got really high, and so I got off of it.
Was that you were taking thyroid
I was
direct?
taking T3,
Okay. Okay. And then it
and
did get
my free T3 was it got too high. It was like 6, and usually the optimal range is like 3.5 to
yeah,
4.
yes.
So, and I was feeling weird, like shaking, and I thought, okay, I got to get off of this. And I was with the functional doctor at the time, so I got off of it, and I'm still off of it, which is good, and I'm okay with that. So now I just try to manage it with food, and I was hoping that with progesterone.
Progesterone should support your
Yeah.
thyroid, and so does pregnenolone. And one
Okay.
one thing I've just been wondering about, and I'm going to be doing a recording with a naturopath next week. We're going to talk about pregnenolone. But so you have a preview today, and
Okay. Let me
pregnenolone.
grab some water. Keep talking. I'm gonna just grab some
Okay,
water.
so pregnenolone will be a one-step process over to make more cortisol. So the question I would have is that pathway intact for you? And something you could check into. So pregnenolone, even though if you go on the internet, you'll see pregnenolone going to DHEA, going to progesterone, but it's not telling you that it also goes directly to make cortisol.
Okay.
And so I think if I were in your shoes, I'd explore that as
Okay.
something to support your need for hydrocortisone because
Okay.
it will do it.
Okay.
So it's actually called the pregnenolone steal.
How do you
And
spell pregnenolone? I'm trying to spell it, but it doesn't look right. Okay.
Pregnenolone. Now, it's the first molecule made from cholesterol. And
Okay.
this is an interesting thing you could measure. You could measure your pregnenolone in your serum. If it's low, it means that your thyroid's not working well enough. You need active vitamin A to convert cholesterol to pregnenolone. And I've
Okay.
been seeing some very low pregnenolones in a lot of clients. Well, what do they have? They have thyroid problems too. But this, outside of some of the other thyroid tests, is another big clue that something is going on with the thyroid under functioning. So one of the things that you really need to have in place when you take thyroid, if you want to take thyroid, you need to have a solid adrenal uh, sufficiency, like you are
Yep.
supplementing with the cortisol. I'm curious, and let me just interject you. When you say Addison's disease, it's the far end of cortisol, cortisone, and metabolite deficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I will submit to you that there are a lot of people having this kind of adrenal fatigue because they're exactly on that same line all the way to Addison's. That continuum has degrees of difficulty, Addison's being the farthest end. So when you have that, you have no energy, you have no resilience to your environment, you have allergies and sensitivities all over the place. And it's extremely important that you keep your cortisol up
Yep.
in your situation. We have a lot of people are afraid of cortisol. Have you read William Jeffries' book, Safe Use of Cortisol?
No, William Jeffries.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So it's going to be right targeted to what you need to know. And
And what's it called about the cortisol? What is it called? Or
safe use of cortisol. It's a
okay.
little bit technical and has a lot of clinical examples. But if you don't have that minimum required amount of cortisol, it's even life threatening, as I'm sure you heard with Addison's. You've got to have it, and we've kind of painted cortisol with a negative brush, and this is partially because when we're under stress, cortisol and adrenaline go up, and a lot of people attribute symptoms of high adrenaline, they attribute it to cortisol. For example, anxiety, rage, sleep problems. Even I've talked to people get so much adrenaline, their body simply shakes, and they have trouble getting rid of that adrenaline. And I believe what happens is cortisol, while it will go up and try to moderate that adrenaline. But if you're in this constant state of stress and high cortisol, while that high cortisol is operating, it's also shutting down your thyroid a bit, shutting down your androgens, testosterone. And then eventually you get to the place where you can't make it, or you can make
Mm-hmm.
very little. And so you hardly can handle any stress at all. I talked to one client last week. She said, I can only do one or two things a day. And I have to prepare my energy for that. So that's what the really low cortisol feels like.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to tell you another story about William Jeffries. So he studied cortisol for over 30 years. And I spoke to him. I got to know him when he was in his 90s, at least by the telephone.
Oh,
And
wow.
he told me he had an outbreak of shingles.
Mm.
And he was normally his dose was 30 milligrams of cortisol every day. He was quite rigid about you do it every 6 hours. And you just mentioned you needed to take your cortisol. You do have to spread it out, and because it does wear off, and you've got to have more. And so some of this dosing that you're doing right now, the foundational work was done by Dr. Jeffries. So he told me
Oh.
he went up to 300 milligrams of cortisol for 3 days. And in that time, he had no pain. He went golfing. Everything was fine. And after the 3 days, the shingles was starting to scab like it will. And so he just went down to his normal dosing. And he explained to me, he said, Carol, that's what your body's supposed to do for you.
Mm.
Put it out when you need it, and then go back down to its maintenance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
So,
body's pretty impressive.
right, right. And strangely enough, we do have hydrocortisone available to us. The 1% cream is everywhere.
Yeah.
I also often recommend people get a tube of this just to have handy. You have if you have this situation with muscle and joint pain and extreme fatigue, i.e. the flu,
Oh, yeah.
this is actually what happens. The flu is that your cortisol has bottomed out.
Wow.
One of the last studies William Jeffries did was um, find out that the pituitary signaling, ACTH, is what is interrupted when you have the flu. So no
Mm-hmm.
cortisol is getting made.
Yeah. I'm
Do
just
you
taking
ta-
a few
do you
notes.
take DHEA?
You know, I don't. I bought some, and the functional person I'm seeing right now told me that they didn't want me taking the DHEA because it could convert to estrogen or something like that. And so it's sitting in my cabinet, not,
Just it's a really good idea to have DHEA there too.
I've
And
always taken it, but she stopped me from taking it because I
okay,
knew my adrenals were no longer producing it.
yeah, you should have it. Okay,
Yeah.
it's your most abundant hormone made from cholesterol, and it's on a continuum. It kind of just goes downhill from your peaking in your 20s, and then by the time you're 80, you're down to 20%. And I think we get so focused in on sex hormones, we often forget this very important adrenal hormone. And I will say this about Dr. Jeffries, he made a little bit of a mistake. And sometimes you find this in researchers. Like he was a um, one direction person, cortisol, but as he got older, he started developing kyphosis in his back, the weakening of the bone structure and stuff. Well, you need to have, along with that cortisol, DHEA, which is androgenic, helps the rebuilding.
Mm-hmm.
And testosterone would have been nice too. And we got him to use the DHEA finally, but he was very resistant when you have one thing on your mind and only that. Even I asked him about the hydrocortisone creams over the counter. I said, wouldn't this work as well as the orals? And he goes, well, I have no idea because I've never studied it.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
so
So he was very focused on just the cortisol, and that's good that so you had the opportunity to introduce it to him or encourage him to take it.
DHEA. Now,
Yeah.
when I first started working in the compounding pharmacy, DHEA first became available for over the counter and for compounding. And there was a big fight about it too. The DEA wanted to make it a controlled drug. And
Right.
so it was quite the issue at the time. But in those early days, there was a doctor who had a protocol that I have repeated over and over again. If you want to be a little bit slower at introducing DHEA, he would have all of his patients start at 5 milligrams orally per day and increase each week. And the end point was when you felt more resilient.
Mm.
And we found that women tended to end up in the 10 to 25 milligram range, and men 25 to 50 milligrams, roughly. There's outliers for all of that.
Okay.
And yes, DHEA can convert to estrogens and testosterone, and that's a good thing. It's supposed to be doing that.
Okay.
And what really happens when you get to menopause, if you have symptoms, you really should be calling it adrenal pause.
Oh,
Be- because at this point, your ovaries have quit their significant contribution, but your adrenals are supposed to be taking over. And when you have come to that time and you've been living a very stressful life,
mm-hmm.
or being very sloppy with your nutrition, everything, you just hit the wall. And the last time I saw a statistic, it was like 80% of women pretty much hit the wall, meaning that they have some pretty serious symptoms when the
Hmm.
ovaries stop their contribution. So it's a pretty the adrenals become the organ, the most important organ as you age, and of course, it's going to take over that function. Your adrenals also make progesterone, by the way, and makes estrogen, makes
Hmm.
testosterone. So that's how it's doing all of that via DHEA for the estrogen and testosterone.
Hmm.
So I think it would be a good idea for you personally, in this case, to add it
But
back in.
yeah, I will. And I just from your knowledge from a pharmaceutical perspective, just so that I could tell my practitioner, because I've been taking it for probably 3, 4 years, and I was actually taking 75 milligrams. I had gone up to 75, knowing about, I had Addison's or
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yes.
and and when I told them, they were like, "Oh, you shouldn't be on this." And then they told me, "Well, it converts, but from your perspective, even if it does convert, it's not enough to make a difference with affecting my estrogen. And if anything, if it helps testosterone, well, then so be it, because my testosterone was 0 2 months ago, and my estrogen and my progesterone, they were all 0.
Like
So,
when you were actually using some?
no,
No.
I had gotten off of it. Yeah, I got
Okay.
off of it in
Okay.
like April.
Okay. So that's your baseline was right down at the bottom. So
Yeah.
did you measure DHEA at the time?
I'd have to go back and look at some of my labs. I know I have measured DHEA with, um, I had another functional doctor and she moved, and I've been trying to find her and I still don't know if she's open yet. So I've kind of been in limbo. And the functional person I'm working with is actually working with my functional gynecologist. Um, and she's a biomeridian individual. She has
Mhm.
a master's in it. She's been doing it for like 30 something years. But I haven't really had a doctor like the functional doctor I was with that has really tried to pay attention to what's going on with my adrenals. And quite honestly, I don't even really know if my endocrinologist years ago was all that savvy, because even when I asked him, well, what am I going to do about my thyroid antibodies? He said, just come back in a year.
I'm
And
just
I'm not kidding you. And I said, so I
curious.
can't go on a diet. I can't do anything. And I
Uh,
thought, well, so then that's when I went on a diet and uh, got corn and soy and wheat and dairy out of my diet. Um,
and since you have a SNP that predicts gluten sensitivity, so that
yeah,
was probably a big thing. So you had all
yeah,
this inflammation and
I
leaky
sure
gut.
did.
So for any antibodies, whether it's thyroid or Sjogren's or arthritis or anything, you know that the gut is disordered. So you have to work at the gut
You're
level.
right. You're right.
And you have to have vitamin D too.
Yeah, my vitamin D this last time was um 110. It was out of the range,
That's okay.
but I didn't really care
Good. Oh,
because
good.
I didn't know. And then of course my functional doctor, or this biomeridian person, said, well, you need to lower your, because I take like 2 to 6,000 international units a day, because
Hmm.
I'm in Colorado. Like, it's cloudy today. It gets cold here in the winter. We don't have access to sun in the winter months.
Yet, you're in the sunniest state in the union.
It is.
But you don't get enough.
We don't get
Uh,
enough. Yeah. I mean, we
and
have
that's
less.
true. It's very true. And doctors were saying like 70, 80 is a good optimal place. But now doctors who are dealing with more severe chronically ill people and cancer, they want to go up to about 120.
Okay. Because
So
I said, well, it depends on the range of who are the average people that they're taking the range from,
that's
that they're
exactly
testing.
right. That's
And I don't know. I think of myself as a healthier person, although I have all these crazy autoimmunes. I just, I don't, I'm not fatigued during the day. I work out, I lift weights, I do cardio, I read my Bible. That doesn't take energy, that gives me peace.
mhm,
Um, and I, I'm not a tired person. Of course, I was tired before they figured out I had Addison's or
mhm.
I had this adrenal. I went to National Jewish finally, and they were the ones that figured out I had adrenal failure. But I don't know, knowing what I know now, I will look into this prednisone for sure. What is the optimal level for DHEA in my labs? Because I know I've taken DHEA probably in the last year with a actual functional doctor, and I'm
And
curious to look at it.
that's a great question because you'll see from lab to lab to lab the
They're
numbers
different.
differ part because of what you said, their collection of people that they used it in. But DHEA has another thing, and they sort of stopped doing it. I never see it anymore. They would give you DHEA ranges for each decade. And now
Oh,
what I believe
oh,
they're doing is they look at your age and give you that level as being the normal level for your decade. And again, picking a group of people and maybe healthy, maybe not. We really don't know the quality of the health of the test group,
exactly.
and that's a big problem. So if you're supporting DHEA, you can go all the way up to 350. Used to be kind of the high end for younger
Okay.
people. And as the anti-aging groups started using a lot of DHEA, they would say you want to restore your levels to that of a 30-year-old. However, when you look at your lab range, it doesn't tell you what it is. So but like I said, if you're 200 to 300 when you're
Okay.
supplementing,
So I've got to look at that
that would be
just
a
to
good
see
good
where I
range.
was, because I think I did take my DHEA in July of last year, and I don't think I've taken it since.
Uh-huh. Okay. So this adrenal stuff that we're talking about right now, it's very, very common. And one of the things that really plays into what's happening to your adrenals is insulin resistance.
Mm,
Insulin and glucose. And Dr. Ben Bickman, who has been at Brigham Young studying insulin, says about 88% of the population has problems with insulin resistance. And one of the things that happens that shoots adrenaline up, other stressors can too, but this is quite common that you have a drop in your blood glucose. And so you start shooting out adrenaline to bring your glucose back up. Cortisol
hmm.
goes with it too. But this pervasiveness of these drops, and sometimes it's often at night. So it's not unusual that people, men and women, have a drop in their blood glucose at night and then they wake up. Now, two things can happen. One is you just go back to sleep, maybe go to the restroom and go back to sleep. Or if you get a surge of adrenaline and you're a poor methylator, you can't detoxify that adrenaline. So it persists and then you can't go back to sleep. And some endocrinologists in the 1930s called this liver insomnia.
Mm,
And they said at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you're awake and you can't go back to sleep, keep an apple by the side of your bed and eat an apple. Why? Because it's bringing up your glucose so you don't continuously pour out more adrenaline. And it gives you a little fiber too to keep the glucose a little steady. So there is a thing you can look on your lab tests. Be sure to ask for fasting insulin and fasting glucose. It's called the HOMA-IR, and it's a calculation that they're using to kind of standardize how bad is the insulin resistance. So it's multiplying fasting glucose times fasting insulin, dividing by a constant 405, and you want to be under 1. So
And
I
that's a
just
whole, it's called Homo IR on the fasting glucose labs.
a HOMA-IR, and you need fasting glucose and you need fasting insulin. I have seen some test results, they actually calculate this for you. Now, conventional medicine says you should stay under 2, but the ideal is under 1 with this number. And what happens pretty much if you look at the fasting insulin, the range is much too large. And you really need to have insulin down to 2, 3, 4 to get this calculation working for you, really on the low end, and yet the range will go all the way up to 20 or something like that. So
Mhm.
when it's going up like that, that's a serious situation. I was listening to Dr. Thomas Lewis, who has looked at a lot of tests and what they mean and where's the sweet spot. So when you see insulin going up, this is malnutrition
Mm.
because that insulin is working hard to try to get the glucose inside your cells and it's failing because it's going up and up and up again.
Mhm.
So it's a serious issue. And then, so once you identified it, what do you do about it? How do you make your insulin more sensitive and work better so you don't have to create so much? And Ben Bickman recommends those intermittent fasting, fast for 18 hours, eat for
Oh,
6.
okay.
Yet, if
I
somebody,
fast on Fridays, but I don't do it weekly. I do it weekly, but I don't fast every day.
but I wouldn't recommend it to you on the basis of
Yeah.
if this is a stress on your adrenals too. So if your adrenals are weak, you won't be able to do this fasting.
Yeah.
But best if you can. I'm often recommending the glucose goddess and her biohacks for
Oh,
glucose.
yeah. She's pretty good. Yeah.
So I like that. And one of the things she said that I like, she said it's no snacking. So you at every meal you eat enough that you're not hungry till your next meal time.
Yeah.
And I think this is very valuable information that she's sharing. Magnesium is a huge deal here. Magnesium will make your insulin more sensitive, and progesterone and testosterone and even hydrocortisone helps you with your insulin and glucose balance.
Hmm. So it'll be good that I think my body with the progesterone, I think I'm going to do well on that. I'm not on testosterone yet. I was just trying to give my body just do progesterone and estradiol now, and then maybe in November add the testosterone in.
Or if you
Yeah.
restart your DHEA, test and see if your testosterone has recovered
Oh, if it
from the
has. Okay.
DHEA. Yep,
Okay.
would be
Okay.
another thing you could do. And I kind of like this on if you just take, let's say you take DHEA and then you test for DHEA and see if it's gone up. So this test only tells you about absorption, tells you nothing else. If you take DHEA and you test DHEA and estrogens and testosterone, now you have a functional test. You know how that DHEA is operating in your body. And DHEA has a lot to do with female libido. Men need testosterone. DHEA doesn't do it for them, but DHEA is good for libido in women.
Okay. Because my libido's low. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you just bought him. Not surprising.
You read my mind.
Why did
You,
I?
you said it.
I know
I mean,
there's
when I started having adrenal issues, it like just a low libido for sure.
Right, so it shuts everything out. Let's
Yeah.
go over to thyroid. So
Okay.
we know if you have antibodies, you have some impairment. You should also be testing for reverse T3.
Yes.
Have you had that tested?
Yes. So, um, it was high. And then, just in my diet change and everything in May and June, when I found out I had celiac, it was just, I think it was like 34. And now it's back down to 12 because I
Oh,
knew that it was supposed to be 15 or lower. And that was always my goal. And then when it shot up, I knew that I was like, okay, my reverse T3 was high, my free T3 was high. And so I am getting tested again just to make sure everything is calmed down and I'm staying steady. I'm getting tested the 27th of this month, like my labs,
okay.
and
So
I'm
reverse
requesting that.
Yeah, reverse T3 is like the mirror image, like your two hands are, but one sits in the receptor and creates activity. It creates energy and it keeps your body temperature, and the other one blocks that receptor, so nothing happens. So it's kind of human hibernation. It revs your body down to preserve life. And
That's
so
that's a good way to look at it. Wow, I never thought of it that way. Okay.
yeah, so it's a defense mechanism. But
Okay.
if practitioners aren't checking that, they're running into a problem with not really understanding how well the patient's doing with their thyroid. Another thing that I do is I always ask for people to test their body temperature. You really should be in the 98 point something all day long.
Okay.
And that's how you can measure if you're taking thyroid, if you've been successful changing your metabolic rate. There was a doctor named Rhoda Barnes who wrote a book called Hypothyroidism: The Unsuspected Illness. This is somebody who I never did get to meet that I would have loved to. And when I read this book, it was one of those books that shake up everything that you've ever been taught before, and you
Hmm.
have to look at everything in a different light. And his research on thyroid was quite detailed. And he's the one who said that body temperature, can be used in place of doing this really complicated test for basal metabolic rate. And it's still a good guide. Things can change your temperature. As you know, if you happen to be sick, your temperature would be higher than normal.
Sure.
And that would be off. So you look like your temperatures are okay and your thyroid is normal, but you're really sick. And then
Mm.
when your temperature is lower, what this means is that all your body functions, when you have enzyme reactions in which you're a sum total of all your reactions, they all run at they all have a best temperature rate of reaction, happens to be around 98.6. You get to slow your metabolic function is sluggish. You get too high, you're revved up for infection or something. Another thing from Dr. Ray Peat says when you take your pulse rate, you really ought to be in the 80s.
So when I take my pulse, so is pulse rate the same as blood pressure? The
No,
little
but
blood pressure machine?
your little blood pressure machine usually gives you pulse rate too,
Oh yeah. And what did they say it should be?
in the 80s.
Okay.
This is from Dr. Ray Peat. I spoke to a woman today who is wearing one of those wearable watches
Yeah.
or Oura ring, which they monitor that. And actually, this is what I usually start around thyroid. I make sure there's pregnenolone there, progesterone there, supports thyroid. Methylation supports thyroid. Iodine, you need iodine to make thyroid. And I make sure all of that is there and have my clients check their temperature. Maybe that's all they need. Their thyroid is working just great. It's just the other things around it that have been
Is
under
exactly.
under
Yeah.
functioning. And so
Yeah.
she actually told me because of her watch or whatever, she started progesterone, pregnenolone, and iodine, and her pulse rate had gone from in the 60s to 72. And I said, "Oh, well, that's quite lovely. We're getting somewhere."
Yeah.
There's more that that blood pressure cuff can tell you. One is you can make it an adrenal test. You can take your blood pressure lying down and then quickly get up and take it again. And your blood pressure should go up when you change position.
Okay.
And if it stays the same or drops, that's an adrenal function test. And your adrenals are weak. Your blood pressure actually, if you're starting to get down into lower numbers like 100 over something,
Yeah.
that's some adrenal weakness too. Conversely, if your adrenals are pumping out a lot of adrenaline, more than you can handle,
Hmm.
then your blood pressure goes up. And three whole classes of blood pressure medication are designed to stop the effectiveness of that high adrenaline. Interesting enough. So why don't they just work on why is there high adrenaline instead of drugging you for a lifetime?
I know, right? That's my question. I haven't really had like adrenal care that has, you know, led me in these directions that you're referring to, that where you allow your body to start to do things that it normally do instead of, like you said, you're relying on a drug for life. I mean, if I could get off the hydrocortisone, I would be more than happy, but I just haven't had a practitioner that's been able to
No,
assist in that.
if you have true Addison's, you're going to have to stick with it.
Yeah. And I don't
And
know, sometimes I wonder, do I have true Addison's? I don't know.
and that's right, Kathie. You bring up a really good thing. Is this diagnosis for life? And look at the changes you made with changing your diet.
I
No.
know. Yeah.
Um, not necessarily, you don't necessarily have blood pressure for life, high blood pressure. I've
Yeah.
sometimes said to people, have you ever had a drug holiday? How do you know you still need it? Particularly if they've made some big changes in their lifestyle or their food or
Yeah.
um, their stressors have gone away. It might be gone and you don't even know it. And your doctor will say, you still have to continue. This is a lifetime drug.
Right. Yep. I need, like a good thorough test on adrenals. And the people that I've been working with, I don't really think they're knowledgeable about adrenals. I don't know, adrenals are kind of like something, it appears to be rare in conventional medicine, perhaps.
Well, it is. When you have that high adrenaline situation, this has taken many women to the hospital, men too, but more often with women. What's happening? Their heart is palpitating,
Yeah.
missing
Mine
beats,
was so
fast,
low. Mine was the opposite.
uh, very, very low heart rate.
Yeah.
So this is when adrenaline is really high, and they'll go to the hospital emergency room, and the emergency room physicians will do a lot of tests to see about the health of your heart. And your heart is perfectly fine. What's off is your hormones.
Yeah.
And they could they could give you in an emergency for this situation, if they recognize that adrenals were involved, they could give you like a beta blocker like propranolol. Now, I'm not a fan of these drugs, but what they do get offered, they get offered a benzo to calm them down when it's really the adrenals that need calming down.
right. And they don't know that. They don't test for it. They don't, I don't know. I don't, it, yeah, it's a, it's an interesting, what would you say? I guess it is Addison's disease. It's interesting because I don't think that it's it's studied very much in the conventional medicine, and
No,
they just think, I mean, I've read in the books that I have about how they're, doctors are prescribing high doses of prednisone, and it's messing up people's gut. Although I think hydrocortisone isn't good for the gut. I think it messes with your enzymes, and um, it messes with bone density. So I'm thankful that I've been able to reduce the level of medication. But I will get this book with William Jeffries to see if there's anything that I just have to find a practitioner that's going to help me and not be, um, on this prednisone and know what they're doing. And a lot of times I don't think even my functional doctor didn't know a lot, and she had me do saliva tests to figure out where I was with my
cortisol.
cortisol. And it seemed like she wasn't, and she even said it. She said, I don't know much about Addison's, and this is an area where I really need to probably educate myself, but I don't have a lot of Addison patients.
No,
So,
no, but the thing is, she has probably most of her practice is on that continuum with cortisol getting depleted over time if there's too much adrenaline. It's rampant. I want to
yeah.
speak about adrenaline for just a few minutes, about methylation. So estrogens need methylation, adrenaline needs methylation, and so does histamine need methylation. And there are estimates that about 40% of our population is low on methylation factor. And this also involves the gut, because the gut is supposed to be making some of these B vitamins for you with methyl groups. And we get it from methylated folate, methylfolate, methyl
Yes.
B12, from phosphatidylcholine, which turns into trimethylglycine, which is also known as betaine. Some people are actually low in creatine, and you can tell this on the kidney function test, the creatinine. If it's on the low side, the precursor creatine, there's not enough of it. It's actually a methyl sink. Your body will use up its methyl groups to make creatine. So you can support that a bit by using some creatine. And exercise helps you detoxify adrenaline, um, which if you're having a problem and you're still wide awake in the middle of the night, if you actually get up and do something to help burn a little bit of that off and go back to bed rather than just lay there and ruminate and have your mind be
Right.
really, really busy. And so that's kind of a problem with this methylation stuff. There's SAMe is another one, form of methionine. And so for those people who have trouble detoxifying um, all of these very, very important hormones, estrogen, and then histamine and adrenaline, uh, they really do need some help getting that detoxified so they're calm.
Mm-hmm. So, my functional doctor, she had me on a B vitamin to help keep my homocysteine in
That's
check, and it's a methyl assist. And so I am
mhm.
taking that, and it keeps it at a good level. I don't want, I've read stuff that you don't want it up at 10. You want it between like 4 and 7. And
Yep,
so
exactly.
mine tends to be more at 7, but I mean, the goal is to just
Yeah,
keep it within that range.
yeah, and you're doing that with that assistance, and that's exactly what people need. And And that's exactly one of the ways you can tell if you do have a methylation issue, if your homocysteine is creeping up. On a urine test for hormones, if there is an accumulation of 4-hydroxyestrone, which is considered to be kind of an aggressive estrogen, the next step for that is to methylate it to 4-methylestrone. So if that's building up, you know it's not getting methylated
Mhm.
properly. And genetic testing, the MTHFR and COMT SNPs have been looked for methylation issues.
Yeah, I do have methylation issues, and that was determined during my celiac tests.
Yeah. And so you're doing the right thing with your B complex.
Yeah. And
And
I'm
if it's,
glad I was taking it like already for like a year and a half.
yeah.
So that's good. It was before I even knew that I had methylation issues, the MTHR or whatever it was. Yeah. I was like, what is, yeah. So
But okay, to wrap this up, just look at Kathie, you are very well informed about your body and
I'm
some of the
grateful
issues.
for that. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of,
And
yeah. I'm grateful for being able to see your videos and other individuals and reading books. And yeah, I
so
just
what,
need to find someone to
yeah.
assist me.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you have to find the right ones. So one of the most marvelous things about all of this is we're able to get hormones without prescriptions. We're able to get lab testing even without somebody being a gatekeeper for those who don't have somebody to collaborate with. And I love how it forces you to take charge of your own self. So we've been the kind of propagandized all through our lives to give our power away to medical professional and just do what they say. And that's got to flip. You have to pay attention to your body, to your health. You're the only one who really cares
You're right.
in the end. And
Yeah.
so it's forcing a trend to that. And I'm loving that.
Yeah. I, you're right. And that's kind of where I've been for about 6, 7 years. Because I kept thinking, why do I keep getting these autoimmune diseases? Something's wrong. Something's
Right.
wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think I'll stop the recording. Here we go.